Howdy, and welcome to the Lost Rider podcast. It's an honor and privilege to address you in the capacity of an interviewer, reporter, and media member. Too many modern media outlets have forgone the integrity and responsibility required of credible information sources. What you will receive here are straightforward discussions with legislators, agency leaders, biologists, engineers, doctors, and countless other experts that have the answers to questions often circulated as kitchen table issues. The title Lost Rider may be thought of literally as well as in the metaphorical sense. While there has been the instance that I was momentarily a little turned around at night in a wilderness area, the idea of being a lost rider in life, well, that fits most folks at some time. These renderings are coming to you in the form of the 25-year-old radio program, The News from the Camp House. It still airs every Saturday morning at 6:30 a.m. Central Time on KULM 98.3 FM out of Columbus, Texas. The original intent was to relate outdoor topics to the general public. Immediately, it was found that all issues are relatable to the outdoors and that people are people. They all play a role and they all have a vested interest. It's this program's desire to answer common questions about how the world works, how it will operate in the future, and what's the holdup. So please listen, enjoy, and never hesitate to contact us with more questions and feedback. Good morning and welcome to this weekend's edition of News from the Camp House, the listening post of the Texas Sportsman Association. This is Herman Brune, and this weekend's edition is also brought to us by the Shaw's Bend Social Club, country club for folks who don't have a country club. All right, tell you what, got a special guest with us this weekend that I really wish everybody around here could meet. I wish everybody could meet him. Josh Schwencke. All right, now Josh has met a few of my Columbus friends. He's not met a lot of them. I wish he'd meet a whole lot more as well as anybody else, because what we're going to talk about today is Josh is a chef, and for the most part, what I've heard him talk about the most is really preparing wild game. And it's one of those instances that everybody's got their own ideas about it, but Josh it's very, very interesting. I'm not a cook, and I think everybody knows I'm not a cook, but when I listen to him, and it's so interesting, he makes it all so interesting and so much fun, it makes me almost want to try to cook, but I know better. But no, I know the ladies love. Josh, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. I can't thank you enough for having me be a part. This is an honor. Something we've been talking about for quite some time now.
Right. Okay, tell everybody, give them a little bit of intro. Tell them, introduce yourself a little bit. Tell them where you live. Tell them about your business.
Absolutely. So my name is Chef Josh Schwencke, and I am the owner and operator of Gastronomy out of San Antonio. We have three arms of what we do at Gastronomy, but every single one of them focuses very much on the education of food, the love and the lure of what it means to cook for yourself. And so one arm of that is doing wild game cooking. So I travel the country teaching wild game. And then I have the honor of being the executive chef for the Wild Sheep Foundation and WomenHunt. And through that, what we do is we actually bring the understanding of how to take your wild game and bring it into your kitchen and cook in a way that everybody is not only going to enjoy, but everybody is going to appreciate the steps it took to get there. And so with all that being said, it's a blast being able to not only hunt, but be a part of all of that and bring hunters in to do something that we call beyond chili, not just constantly looking at your game for doing chili or jerky or whatever, but can you do a Thai green curry? Can you do a Moroccan tagine? Can you do any of these random type of kind of preparations for your wild game that your family's going to enjoy? And so alongside that, at Gastronomy, we own a culinary school in San Antonio. And at the culinary school, we teach home cooking, but at a chef's level. So we teach life skills, and everything that we do is centered around teaching life skills so that anybody from any walk of life and any kind of aptitude of cooking can come in and really kind of level up their game. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is they come in and learn how to properly use a chef's knife like a chef would use. And this transforms their cooking at home. So they want to cook more. So with that comes better eating practices, better nutrition, and so on. And then we also have a third arm, which is called Gastronomy Live Events. And with that, I actually kind of travel South Texas. So that one keeps me more in market. And I do everything from beer tastings to wine tastings, and everything's really centered around me having a really, really good time with food and grabbing my friends, grabbing people like yourself and bringing them in and saying, hey, this is what food should be. It should be gathering around the table, breaking bread together, and enjoying each other's company through something that is probably a little bit more difficult than what you're used to. So we kind of push away all the convenient parts, and we work through the importance of bringing a meal to the table.
Okay, all right. You lost me when you said something besides chili.
Chili.
Okay, this is great stuff. And I think what I'd like to focus on here a little bit is that, you prepared meals for us last year at the podcast summit. And, and I've had your cooking in other places. You did at the Wild Sheep Foundation show this year in Reno. You had a stage where you were teaching all this for, 3 or 4 days. Mm-hmm. And then, so you do this as well as you're able to go places and put on seminars and classes. And that's kind of what I'm looking at. And that's what we talked about before, was going to, say, like, come to Columbus and advertise it well in advance and get 40, 50 ladies together for you to put on a seminar.
Absolutely. That's the part that I get ecstatic about, is gathering a community, and especially a smaller community. Being from San Antonio, San Antonio is large, but going to some place like Columbus or surrounding areas and being a part of that community coming together and breaking bread, and not only doing that, but teaching in a fun manner where everybody, because every one of our, what we call them is activations, but every one of our classes, every one of our events are centered around people having a good time. Mm-hmm. And so that can be with a group of ladies, that can be at a hunting lease with, a bunch of families wanting to better understand how to butcher their deer or how to break down their wild game. It can be even a wine or beer tasting, a German beer tasting. My family came from Germany. Mm-hmm. And having a German beer tasting with authentic German food in an old Texas German town is something that is near and dear to my heart. So these events that we do are really centered, again, around everybody just having a good time, getting to laugh, getting to enjoy each other's company. And really, the most important part is getting to break bread.
Right. Everybody getting together and having a good time. All right. So, someone like me, it's okay. It would be like cooking for dummies. And I mean, I expect that with these classes, you kind of do that to an extent without insulting people. And I'm going to let you explain that just a little bit.
Absolutely. So what we have is not only in the wild game portion of what we do, but with our culinary school, we have a mix of different types of capabilities in the kitchen. So we have people who might come in or come to one of our Reno show for Wild Sheep Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have everybody coming in saying, hey, you know what? I've been processing and cooking my own wild game my entire life. And you have other people who are much more in the meat eater crowd who came across like a show on Netflix, and now they're super passionate about it and they want to take that next level. All of those are accessible with our type of curriculum we offer. And like you yourself, you say you're not a good cook, but do you know what good food is?
Well, sure.
Yeah. So what I do is I kind of bridge the gap and say, how do we get from point A to point B? And how do we get it so that you enjoy it, so that you're like, oh, you know what? This is a skill that I've learned myself, and I can now do this easily because somebody taught me how to, and now I want to do it more often. And so the ROI of cooking, the return on investment of cooking, is so much higher because you're like, oh, this is easy. I know the steps to make this easy. And in our culinary school, that's really what we do focus on, is offering a kind of springboard mentality of getting our clients and our students to a point of going, this is how I'm going to cook from now on.
All right. Okay, let me inject here just a little bit, because one of the things that I get out of listening is, like you explain how to release flavors, you explain about proteins, how to sear something, what salt does, and you explain all that when you do your seminars. And to me, that helps. Instead of just telling me how to do it, I get why we do it and how to do it and how to do it correctly.
Right. And that is, so every time I teach, what I do is I look at how to make it relative and how to make it applicable. So if I can make it relative by explaining how certain types of nitrates and nitrites and sodium will affect your protein when you're curing it, and do it in a fun manner by telling you a parallel or like a story that would kind of be parallel to it, you're always going to remember that, because you're going to be like, oh wait, I want to cure this ham on this wild hog. What did Chef say? Chef said, oh, he told me that funny story, and it will relate. And then making it applicable is doing what you just said, which was beautifully put, is making it so that you can take that knowledge and it's very easy to apply it to your home kitchen. Because cooking can be so daunting to people who don't cook.
Right.
Yeah, because,
yes,
and they go, well, I don't have the tools. I don't have the equipment. I don't have the knowledge of how to use a knife. Well, we take care of the knowledge, and then we say, okay, now this is how to use this life skill that's exactly what it is.
Right.
Use this life skill for the rest of your life, and be in love with the process. And the process is something that is super important.
Well, and it's every step is important, and is essential to doing it well, and that's why I need someone like you to instruct me, because I always feel like I screwed up before I started. But I tell you what, let's take a quick break, and thanks folks for letting us come on here every Saturday morning. We'll be right back. Thank goodness for all the great sponsors we have here at News from the Camp House. HEB Food Stores. That's Stephen Tice at HEB. He helps me. He helps the community. He's a great man. I'm so thankful HEB loosened him up, lets him go around and sponsor a few things. HEB's got all your food needs. It's the greatest food store we got here in Columbus. Thank goodness for HEB. First State Bank. You go over to the First State Bank, they'll take care of all your loans, all your deposits, your savings, anything you need. Bunch of great hometown people over there. You got Celia Tobias, John Pollock. Everybody over there is looking out for you. Miss Barbara Barta. It's a great bunch of folks at the First State Bank is also sponsoring News from the Camp House. First State Bank takes care of all my business. Baumgart Agency, Susan Baumgart at the Baumgart Agencies, her and Germania. She told me to plug Germania. Germania is an insurance that she likes everybody to know about. The Baumgart Agencies. Miss Susan and I are classmates, been classmates. She got me out of high school, sat right beside her, put us in alphabetical order where I could copy. And Susan Baumgart over at the Baumgart Agency, taking care of all your insurance needs. Lyco Realty, one of the original sponsors of News from the Camp House. Lyco Realty, the oldest real estate company in the county, and for the last 3 years voted the favorite realtor in the county. Lyco Realty, that's Miss Kimberly Johnson. That's Crockett's granddaughter. More kinfolks and classmates and great people from Colorado County. People from Colorado County helping people from Colorado County. That's great. Oh, thank goodness for all these wonderful people come to me want to be sponsors for News from the Camp House. Good morning and welcome to this weekend's edition, News from the Camp House, second half. Okay, so we're here this weekend with Chef Josh Schwencke, and we've been talking in general about, you know, the classes that he teaches and the functions that he goes to, and how he goes about teaching his culinary classes. And this is all great stuff. I've watched him do this several times. It's just great stuff because I'm not a cook. Everybody knows I'm not a cook, but the only thing I can cook is chili, and he already made fun of me for that. And so anyway, it's all good. It's all good. Now, let's talk about in particular things. Now, for our area, say like wild hogs, okay? How would you prepare that meat before it ever goes into the kitchen? When you're cleaning them and doing all that stuff, how would you tell me?
Well, I'll try to fit in as much as I can within this time. So sure. When you are starting to process, you want to get the temperature of that meat under 40 degrees, under 40 degrees as quick as possible. So having that wild hog sit in the back of your truck and you run into town to run errands, no one would really do that, right? Mm-hmm. But you need to have the mentality of as soon as that heart stops, the timer starts. Okay. And the timer starts on introducing pathogens into your meat that can really do some harm, right? And so with that being said, there needs to be a big push to making sure that the protein stays safe and everything stays in good order. Obviously taking the hide off so that the protein can cool down much quicker, mm-hmm. taking the offal or the insides of the animal out, all the organs, remove those because those right there, obviously, especially the digestive system can do a lot as far as introducing pathogens. And then, I mean, even with something like wild hog, which I grew up just west of here in Yoakum. Mm-hmm. And that was what we hunted all the time. Mm-hmm. And so it was a quick turnaround because we were pretty proficient with a blade, but getting that to the ice as quick as possible. And one thing you and I were talking about earlier is, and I love that we can have these different trains of thought. You were talking about letting your hog soak for a good amount of time in ice water, right? Not only does that facilitate the temperature aspect of it, but it also helps with obviously purging out some of the extra protein and maybe some of the undesirable flavors that you might get with wild hog. Okay. So you can do that. You could do that with wild hog, which I think is perfectly fine with your venison, with your whitetail. If you're going north or west, you got elk, you got mule deer, all of those. I would keep those wrapped in a construction bag, okay, very, very tightly. Don't get the scented HEB bags or the scented garbage bags that smell like lavender. You don't want any of that. What you want is the 5-gallon black construction bags, mm-hmm. and those will be a water barrier, and then put them on dry ice, not as in dry ice, but as in ice that is dry. Okay. And if it sits on top of that, what that does is it will also create an atmosphere with inside the bag where mm-hmm. that hind quarter is, where those back straps are of your deer, of your boar, whatever the case may be. And what that will do is it will keep the protein nice and cold without having it be waterlogged. Because when it gets waterlogged, you get that kind of pale, kind of pink okay. protein. So, but I personally, that's what I do. It helps keep the protein in good condition. And then the next step is bringing it to the kitchen.
All right. Okay. So in short order, what you just said was you're not mad at me for soaking that hog meat and getting some of that old gamey stuff out of it, but don't do that with deer or elk or anything like that. Keep that separate. Put them in a trash bag, put the ice on top of the trash bag, and just and that all makes sense. That all sounds good. I think everybody go along with that. Now, let me get outside of Colorado County a little ways, because earlier we were sitting around with a bunch of hunters and stuff that had been all over the world. And we started naming off a bunch of critters that I just soon not even mess with. And out west, out in the American West, where I did so much stuff, all the old timers, nobody of them, none of them would touch a prairie goat, okay? Pronghorn antelope. Now, the reasoning behind that, I didn't know when I first went up there, but the reasoning behind that was because these critters live on sage. And they're considered inedible because of that by a lot of people. Is there anything you can do for that?
Absolutely. So just like when you're talking about you're talking about pronghorn, or you're even talking about aldad, because here in South Texas we have aldad, and we have aldad all over the Texas Hill Country. What you have to do is you have to implement flavors and fats that will complement and sometimes diminish the gaminess. So if it's a high sage type of diet, high sagebrush diet for the animal, you obviously don't want to go in with a lot of herbs that are going to kind of not even be parallels to. You want to go in an opposite direction. So high acidity. So something like a good vinaigrette, soaking it in a good vinaigrette after it's been brought into the kitchen for a day or two. Okay. You can also use lime juice. So citrus and lime, citrus and sage go pretty well together, and so it'll kind of balance it out. Okay. Now, there's other forms of adding fat that will help diminish that, because all your gaminess, your sage flavor and some of the other undesirable flavors are going to exist within the ligaments, the bones, and the fat of your animal. Okay. And so if you are glassing, or you're watching your animal graze, and you take its life and you're looking at it eating sagebrush, there is 100% chance that right there is going to taste like sagebrush. Right. So what you have to do is kind of, as a hunter and as a culinarian, when I'm hunting, I'm thinking, okay, what does this look like on the plate? What does this look like when I feed my family? And so you can do other ways of implementing fat by larding and barding. Larding is injecting it with fat. You can use beef tallow, which I love to use. Or you can use, you can bard it. Larding is injecting, and barding is actually wrapping it. So you can do this in caul fat, which is the lining of the digestive system of the animal, or you can wrap it in bacon, which is also that's the easiest one. Sure. And so what that does is it adds fat. Fat equals flavor, and it kind of tones down the saginess of it, or whatever they happen to be eating.
Well, no, that's a big deal, because like I said, the old timers, when I went up to Montana and Wyoming, the old timers would not touch a pronghorn. And when we started up there, the mule deer that we were getting were mountain muleys. And for some reason, in that particular part of Wyoming, at the sage stopped at a lower altitude. And so the mountain muleys that we were getting didn't exist on sage. Right. But when we went out to the Missouri Breaks, everything ate sage. And it really, we brought home mule deer from the Missouri Breaks, and I was so disappointed, because I was expecting this great mountain muley taste, and I got a mouthful of sage.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean that's going to happen, because if you're going after a certain species, it's great, and especially if you paid good money for a hunt, you go after a certain species, look at what they're eating during that time of year, focus on the terroir, meaning kind of the area that they're grazing within, the mile radius. So if they're in between a kind of a sage area and maybe different foliage further up the mountain, there's going to be a blend of those. And so it's the same thing. And to non-hunters, I kind of relate it like this. If you have a grass-fed, grain-finished steer, right, and you have that process, that steak is going to have the attributes of a little bit of both of them, but we obviously finish it with grain to take some of that gaminess or that high iron away. But if they're finished on grass, then what you notice is that the high iron intake is there, and it's noticeable in the protein of the meat. And the same goes for your wild game. If you're sitting there glassing an elk and you're focusing on what it's eating, that right there should play into the entire process of what you're cooking and how you're cooking it.
All right. Yes. No, I understand that completely. And folks should take that into account, whether they're going on a wilderness hunt or ranch hunt, or, if they're going to go shoot something out of somebody's alfalfa field, that's the best bet.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and we grew up watching deer, feed on a lot. Even with the hogs, going back in the hog territory, we'd watch them eat Mustang grapes. They'd pull Mustang grapes out of the trees, and they would eat those. And those really didn't show up as much, but when those Mustang grapes, because my family would make wine out of those grapes. And those grapes really don't show up in the way of a sweetness like you think it would, but something like a blueberry bear that you might get, in parts of BC are going to have that rich blueberry color in their protein, because it's all relative. It's all relative to what they're eating, when they're eating it, and how they're eating it. So all of that translates into, hopefully a desirable finish on the protein when you eat it.
All right. Josh, we're out of time. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Absolutely. It's an honor.
Folks, I hope you enjoyed this weekend's edition of News from the Camp House. I hope we can get Josh down to Columbus and put a class on. That would be great, because I can't do justice with him here. I mean, people need to be with Josh and listen to him and go to one of his seminars and spend an evening with him. And that you just come away with more knowledge and better information about how to really cook stuff and why you do things the way you do them. So we really appreciate him. All right. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. Hope it was interesting for you. This weekend's edition of News from the Camp House is also brought to us by the Shaw's Bend Social Club, country club for folks who don't have a country club. All right. Now, go out, enjoy your weekend, have a big weekend, have lots of fun, be safe, and y'all just remember, pretty much any day is sure a good day to be out in the woods.